Hello and welcome to another Witchy Wizardy Wednesday. My name is Markabadi. This is the live inspirational community collaboration. And again, Witchy Wednesday seems to constantly throw up technical problems. It is Earth Day as well. Happy Earth Day. I am unable to go live, and so we're recording this and posting it afterwards. So I hope you enjoy the show and that you're enjoying all the other wonderful things that are being posted on Earth Day today. Today we have some wonderful guests. We have Dr. Melinda Connor and Dr. Kate Connor, mother and daughter, who are working to move the energy medicine system, all the stuff that we're working on with healing energies, into a more legitimate and recognized domain of traditional medicine. So they're working on all the systems that will move what is previously thought of magic into the realms of healing and energy. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon, sir.
I gave you a little intro before at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to do it again. I've known Melinda Connor, Dr. Melinda Connor, for quite some time now, probably about 15 years. And
closer to 20.
And we met through the energy medicine side of the world, which is basically the physics of how the healing stuff works. The Reikis, the pranic healings, even massage therapy has elements of energy moving from the body to the other body. And this is talked about from traditional Chinese medicine to the Vedic system from India. Across the world, it's been talked about, but science is lagging behind an ability to be able to measure it. And that is what Melinda has been dedicating her life to. And now I hear Caitlin as well, Melinda's daughter, dedicating that time to. So, I mean, you've too many degrees, Melinda, to talk about. So let's start there. You're an ordained Buddhist priest, as well as being a doctor and a clinical psychologist and a neuropsychologist. You've written 10 books. You teaching at various universities across the world. Your first degree was at Harvard, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you've lots of degrees, and you're an ordained Buddhist priest, which was my most exciting part about your thing. And you founded a ballet school when you were younger. Caitlin, you did your bachelor's in science and anthropology, your master's in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your doctorate in acupuncture and
Oriental medicine.
Oriental medicine. Yeah. So I'm toned against that word Oriental. I've been told off for it, and now it's used again. It's like
it's the old technical term, and it hasn't been updated. There's a fair amount of controversy.
Right. Anyway, you're both currently focused on legitimizing energy medicine in terms of a scientific protocol. Could you tell us, and maybe Melinda, you start off, tell us a little bit about that process.
So there's a couple of different pieces that are involved in what we're doing. The first one is that we have now posted a whole set of bibliographies and made them accessible to the public at www.naoep.org, the National Alliance of Energy Practitioners. We have over 15,000 peer-reviewed journal articles that are on that listing. We have, for example, over 600 that are from the National Library of Science database, PubMed, that are specifically on laying on of hands and full spectrum healing.
Let's can I just stop you there? I just want to understand, for the viewers who may not know, what is energy medicine?
Energy medicine is the charged fields that surround and protect essentially the corona of the body. Like the earth has an atmosphere and a corona around the earth. The human body does the same thing. So it's the charged fields that permeate through and extend past the surface of the body There are lots and lots of different kinds of charged fields. You can have radio frequency fields, you can have microwave fields, you can have, oh gosh, all the way into things like 5G. When we've literally tested practitioners, we test them up through 8 gigahertz.
Right.
So practitioners and people are turning out lots and lots of frequency waves. The old comment and the old theory was that you had one cell and one frequency. And we found that that isn't true at all. You have lots of cells, but each cell has billions of frequencies that it's in dialogue with, potentially sending them out.
Right. Caitlin, I mean, you've obviously got into this field and followed in Mum's footsteps with regards to the physics of energy. Why does traditional, well, it's not traditional, why does allopathic medicine find it so difficult to understand energies?
The definition that I usually use is allopathic Western medicine uses a chemical system, and that's definitely accurate. There's a fair amount of chemistry going on there. What they're missing is the electrical system, and that's what energy works with. So when you have nerves that are firing, there's a transmission of an electrical current from one place to another, and that charge doesn't disappear just because it gets to the other point. So you have a fair amount of energy, literally energy frequencies, that build up over time, and they do things. And for the most part, Western medicine doesn't deal with that at all, with the exception of things like shocking hearts back into rhythm, which has certainly proven very effective. So,
I've heard the saying that these fields exist, but they're so tiny and so small that they can't possibly do anything.
Sorry.
Yeah. Tell us.
So
yeah.
we've just finished doing 14 years of work, testing over 1,200 practitioners in the US and in Canada and in Mexico, on a whole set of devices, everything from a data logging multimeter, which is a bog standard boring electrical voltage meter that you can pay $19 for down at Home Depot, and every electrician in the world uses it, okay, to much more complex devices like BioWell and GDV, physiology suites, neuro and biofeedback, extra low frequency magnetic field meters, things like that. And what we're finding is that the energy field is tremendously complex. Yes, you can measure elements of what is being produced. You can measure effects that are being produced. Maybe those are actually the biofield that healers are talking about. Maybe they aren't. But we can see healers produce things like oscillatory effects. When you're sick, you're stuck. What does a healer do? They make things wiggle. They get you unstuck.
Also, in terms of the size, I believe one of the bibliographies is on long distance healing. So size may or may not make a difference in that.
I know that there's an element in quantum physics that tiny things have massive effects. And maybe it's, the medicine's lack of ability to understand the quantum world. That's because, I mean, if the quantum world exists, which it clearly does, because it's repeatable experiments that show something weird is going on, like entanglement and wave particle duality, something weird's happening. We, as part of the world and nature, must have quantum systems inside us. Have we discovered any of these quantum systems?
We are a quantum system. It's not inside us, we are it. So when a healer works distance, one point of space touches every other point of space. They reach from one point of space to another. There's no magic involved. It's a matter of touch. You reach from point one space to the other space because the two pieces are touching. So that essentially means as long as you have charge and you're a living, existing system as a practitioner, then you can reach out and touch someone basically anywhere on Earth.
Of course, a lot of people find that hard to understand, and that's what you're working to help people get to the point of, right? Collecting all this research, all this data.
We have tested people at 15,000 kilometers, producing physiological effects.
So where's this all going to? Is it going to an incorporation of energy medicine with the medical allopathic model? What will it look like? How will all these drugs?
So, you know, there are lots and lots of chronic diseases that haven't been solved. And there are lots of things like this new virus that haven't been solved. And the more that we can understand about the complexity of the universe, the more that we can understand about how to move forward in an integrative fashion. Most of Western medicine provides symptom suppression. Okay, surgery doesn't do that, antibiotics don't do that, but most of Western medicine provides symptom suppression. Energy work provides causal resolution. It's much more like surgery in that you make a change and it produces a change across the board. Now, all sorts of people work different ways. So some healers work more with emotional dynamics, which then change things like brain biochemistry. We can track that. We can see the EEGs change. We can do a QEEG analysis and look at where the brain lights up differently. We can look at PET images and MRIs, both with and without contrast, and see how the brain is functioning in those processes. We have that data. It's not a mystery. We have hard science data.
So, Caitlin, how is the world receiving this hard science data?
That depends an awful lot on the person. And a lot of the problem is actually getting the information out. So you have different, basically, categories of research journals. You have more known, less well known, and different focuses.
It's kind of like media news networks with regards to coronavirus, right?
Exactly.
So do we need to go out on the London Reels and the Alex Jones version of journals? Carry on, Caitlin.
Okay. And basically, most people read journals within a specific area. So you have a surgeon, for example, and they are going to read surgery journals because that's the information that they need to have. And if the information is being published in a neuroscience journal, they're not going to have access to that information the same way because it's not necessarily as relevant to them. So you wind up with clusters of where people are getting the information. The second problem is after you have the actual research studies published, you then have news sources, like you mentioned, publishing from there. And no offense to journalists, they aren't scientists. So they don't always completely understand what was written. And some of that's actually on the researchers because the studies aren't necessarily written in a way that's readable.
Absolutely. So
you've got a certain amount of translation issue from there. And you've generally got basically a selection bias.
Right.
So
what can we do about that?
Practice.
I mean, this silos of data seems to be coming up. And I was just having a conversation this morning with somebody who's designing next level computer archiving systems and the question is like, everyone's working, and on their computer, they've all got these silos of data. They've got their projects and their stuff, and oh no, I can't share my project because somebody might steal it. And it's like everyone's in their own little silos. Imagine as humanity, if we were to suddenly go share and everything was shared, imagine the amount of advancement. Now, what's firing for me in my head now is almost like the world of energy medicine, because it envelops the quantum world or surfs the quantum world, has that borderless connectivity to it. So I don't know where the connect is, but it just triggered for me as some sort of irony that one of the main problems is the siloing of data. And how can we drop the silos so that people can digest the information more readily? And does energy medicine have some sort of answer there in some sort of subconscious delivery packet of information? I don't know.
I think the closest we've got at this point are the bibliographies. We've got as comprehensive a list as we can of the studies that have been done. And just for the record, if anyone finds research studies that we didn't include, please send them to the email on the webpage. We will add them.
And that's
we are actively looking for more.
That's
Sorry.
naoep.org.
Yes.
And what does it stand for? National Archive?
National Alliance
of Energy Practitioners.
Oh.
There's also a certification center, the National Certification Center of Energy Practitioners, like the acupuncturists. There's a national certification center for acupuncture and oriental medicine. And we're in the process of moving the field forward. We hope to achieve more clarity in terms of professional status, and to solve a problem at the same time. Turns out, which was a shock to me and many of the people involved in the legitimate energy healing community, that we were implicated in human trafficking, that children were being pushed into pimping and pandering situations with energy medicine, things like Reiki, being used as the way that they got them in that process. They would sell the time of the person saying that it was someone coming to do a Reiki session on you. And it would not be that kind of a session. It would not be a Reiki session. And so part of establishing ourselves as trade boards in each state and establishing ourselves as professional processes is to reduce and potentially eliminate that as an issue and protect children.
I'm sorry, I lost what was going on there. What happens? Some people are using terms of energy medicine, for example, Reiki, to mask what?
Pimping.
So like, oh, you want a Reiki session? They mean you want to pimp a child. So they've stolen, as if it wasn't hard enough to validate energy medicine. And now
they're also using it as legal protection. So most states, not so many anymore in response to this, still have faith healing as legal. So if you get ordained as a Reiki practitioner and you get an online ordination as something religious, then you are theoretically doing a religious faith-based healing and legally protected. Fortunately, most states that have run into this seem to be seeing through that particular.
Now, I'm not trying to slander sacred sexuality. That is different.
Of course.
That is consenting adults participating in a sacred and joyous act that is an act of grace and beauty, communication, and soul sharing. Yeah. That is different.
Obviously, anything involving children is ridiculously out. So then now what's the next steps like in terms of so you've collected all this data, all this research, engaged in more research continuously happening, right? So now what's the next step with that? What are the processes?
We've brought together over 70 of the largest energy healing training programs in the country of various disciplines. We've actually brought them together as a community. The dialogue actually started between the federal government and the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energies and Energy Medicine back in 2010, when they came to us, said, there's a problem, could you help us sort this out? And over the years,
did not specify what that problem was at the time.
Yeah, we actually were pretty shocked when we found out what the underlying problem was and why they had brought this issue to us.
And that underlying problem was the Reiki with the kids.
Yes.
Reiki.
Yes. Right. Well, and quality control.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We want energy practitioners to be respected as a profession.
Right.
You know, so that you're competently trained. Things like having an anatomy and physiology class, that's respectful.
Mm.
You know, yes, you are doing energy medicine work and you're working with the layers, or you're working with a unified field, you're working with chakra structures, you're working with field flows. That's great. But anatomy and physiology, it's a person on the table, or it's a veterinary animal on the table. Anatomy and physiology is respectful.
Well, and it's necessary. It's part of the physical makeup of being. Even
exactly.
if, you know, we've got to, you've got to honor all aspects of being. There's the mind. Everyone knows there's a mind. There's no point going and say, oh, you don't, there's no mind. It doesn't exist in my world. It's like your mind's there, your body's there, and there's an energy. So, you know, otherwise we're playing the same game that the allopathic medicine played, where they said it's just drugs, just chemistry. And by the way, buy this bottle of chemistry that I've done here. You can't make it yourself, because I've special patent on this particular chemistry, which I took from the plant over there. I'm not telling you about.
So when you're looking at the global scope of the process, you want to have reasonable things establishing as a profession. You want to have things like liability insurance. You want to have things like good ethics and commonality of ethics and purpose. So we brought together various segments of the community. We brought together the Qigong community and the Tai Chi community and the dowsing community and the spiritual healing community and the laying on of hands and the full spectrum and the Reiki community. And I've been profoundly gratified with the number of practitioners across the country that have been involved in this process, that came together, met repeatedly, talked about what was involved. And we ended up, first we did the main training programs that did meetings at Arizona State several years ago. And we developed 14 working groups from that, and a scientific community that came together very intensely. It was fabulous. And then from those 14 working groups, we actually have developed 10 divisions, and we're working on the 11th. If you have a training program, anyone who is out there who does medical intuition as a training program, we invite you to join the group. Doing the dialogue, developing the standards for medical intuition. So we ask that each group develop their own standards within their community, name what is right and in truth and appropriate for their community, rather than having, you know, someone come in from the outside and dictate how things are going to be done. One of the fascinating things that I dealt with back when I was doing rural healthcare was when HIPAA was implemented. And people worked really hard on HIPAA. And in the actual document is the word reasonable over 2,100 times, because people didn't understand the computers, didn't understand the medical records, didn't understand the ethical issues about transfer of medical information, didn't. They did the best that they were capable of doing in the time allowed, but they were not inside the system, they were external to the system.
Right.
So we brought together the internal people.
Yeah. Kaylin, you had something to say?
Yeah, just going back to the medical intuition thing. as a group, we decided not to start a division with less than 3 groups. So that's across the board.
Right, right. And so now will reasonable effects. The HIPAA was a bit of a disaster in certain communities.
Yeah, there's still lawsuits going on about HIPAA, how you really want to implement HIPAA, what the boundaries of safety and security are, what the issues around distribution of information are, understanding the computer complexities. You know, we've had insurance companies be hacked and people's medical information distributed.
So now on, you've got the research, you've got one of the things that's always baffled me is how TCM, how acupuncture seems to get a pass. I mean, it's great that it does. I prefer it's in than it's not in, but it seems to get a pass with the allopathic world of medicines when fundamentally all of its principles are based on the same principles of energy that the rest of the energy medicine world is based on. So what's special, Caitlin, about acupuncture as a practice?
I think there are a couple of components to that. The first thing is, even if your average Western medical provider doesn't understand what's happening with acupuncture, and I'm assuming they haven't been trained, so presumably they're not going to understand what they haven't been trained in per se. The acupuncturist is doing something physical. They are inserting a needle. Even if you don't understand how that needle is going to have an effect, there is something physical that is being done. And with energy work, most of the time what people see is you are waving your hands over the surface of someone's body, and seeing the logical connection there is a little bit trickier.
Right.
So I can see the external visual differences there. Some of this is that acupuncture has been legal longer. With the exception of faith healing, laying on of hands healing in this country has actually been illegal for a very long time. Mom, do you want to cite the statutes on that?
Actually, it's been since the 1930s.
That laying on of hands has been illegal.
It's a felony in most states on the second offense unless you are an ordained pastor working on a member of your congregation. The exemption to that is in health freedom states. But there's a caveat that needs to be put into the health freedom concept, actually 2 of them. The first one of which is there's no quality control. And I have to tell you, I'm really tired of getting called at 3 in the morning when somebody's in trouble because they messed up because they don't know enough.
And what would a mess up look like?
Somebody into the hospital with sugars of 400, heading into a coma and dying.
Because
they
what?
Overcharged the pancreas.
Oh, energetically they overcharged the pancreas.
Yes, and sent the sugars through the roof. Diabetics are very, very vulnerable.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so that's piece 1. The second piece is health freedom only works until a trade board is established. That takes 1 meeting of a legislature to vote a trade board in. I would rather that we get the trade boards in place and we are the ones who control the standards and do it at a national level, do it appropriately, effectively, professionally.
Okay, so where are we up to on that?
We have 10 divisions defined. www.nccoep.org. We actually have the very first piece of legislation has been submitted, and we're in the process of looking for people who would be interested in supporting their state moving forward toward professionalism.
And what would that involve?
Writing the actual legislation, submitting it to a representative who will then take it forward to the state legislature so that we can eliminate ourselves, which is just good conduct, as participating in any way, shape, or form in injuring children, and we can effectively present ourselves as professionals. And if you take a look at the website, under the applications for practitioners, you'll see it's very straightforward in most cases, and we've allowed for both ordained and not ordained individuals. We've allowed, for example, in Qigong, we have clinical practitioners, we have lineage practitioners, and we have faith-based practitioners, because all of those are segments of that community. The point is not to lock people out. The point is to define ourselves as professionals, as competent and careful, and to make sure that the children don't get injured.
What will this look like then? So let's say somebody wants to get approved by either the NAOEP or the NCCOEP. I'm not sure which one does the approving.
NCC does the approving.
NCC, because it's got certificate in the title, yes. And so, okay, so if somebody wants to get approved, I've studied Reiki now, and I've got a Reiki experience. I did this certificate, whatever, but now I've learned for the last 10 years, I've been doing Reiki. Now, I want to get an approval. What does it look like? Do I have to put myself on the machines and output something?
For some of the divisions, yes. We do have empirical testing for some of the divisions, not for every division. Some of the divisions are using very different focus than some are using number of hours of training. We have a natural health practitioner pathway. So it isn't that we're trying to say everybody has to go through an established training program. There is a natural health practitioner pathway that's a mentored pathway, so that you're supported in how you unfold, so that you're holding the truth of your gifts in the way that you need to hold them. So the object is not to shut people out. The object is to bring integrity to the process. So you go out to the website, you download an application, you fill out the necessary information, you mail it all in with the fee, you get your certificate for your anatomy and physiology if you haven't had it. For example, if you're a nurse, you've already had it, you just send us confirmation. If you are a physical therapist, if you're a massage therapist, you've already had anatomy and physiology. You don't need to do it again, we just need to confirm it.
If you have anatomy and physiology as an undergrad, as your science requirement, you've had it.
If you haven't had it, we've found a training program. Online, $150. You can do it at your own pace. We're not trying to burden people. We're just trying to establish a level of professional standard.
And I do want to point out quickly, all of the requirements for the different divisions are listed on the Certification Center website, since there are differences.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Caitlin, what does it look like then, the future of medicine? Like 10, 20 years down the line, where are we up to here? You're the doctors of the future, and Mum's been carrying the torch. At some point, there's a Passover. What does the future look like?
I honestly have no idea at this point. Based on how long it takes, legislation will probably have not all of the country set up in terms of trade boards, but we should have a fair chunk by then. I mean, acupuncture is mostly licensed in this country. There are a few states that are still exceptions, and they're 30 years in. So hopefully we can follow a similar timeline. And we hopefully should be getting more visible in terms of the research and better quality research.
Are some states, like, it is a state thing rather than a federal thing, right?
Yes, anything medical has to be done at the state level.
And when does it become federally accepted? Like, I mean, you can have medical use marijuana in California and Oregon, but like, it's still a federal offense to have it. So how does it relate to, like, operating at the individual state level, when does it ever go into the federal level? Is it just when every state agrees?
More or less. Because we are using the acupuncture model, what we're doing is we're setting basically national standards that we hope the states will then match, but it's not technically federal, if that makes any sense. So the idea behind that is you can go to a different state and get licensed there as well. It just means you can move and you can work across state boundaries when you're doing distance healing.
Right.
But at the moment, anything medical in this country is supposed to be handled at the state level. So that gets complicated fairly quickly.
And we're also getting ready, and we'd love to invite energy practitioners across the country to join us. We've been in dialogue with a group called Voice for Hope, and we would like to take a whole team to Washington, D.C. to meet with representatives at the federal level, Senate and Congress. Once this whole COVID-19 thing is done, hopefully we'll get back to a different level of balance, and dialogue with them so that they are also involved in the process. They have an understanding of what's going on, so that we can create opportunities at the federal level for funding for research, so that we can create understanding at the federal level. You know, back in, I want to say it was 2004 or 5, the National Institutes of Health did a survey of a number of government personnel to see their usage of complementary medicine of various kinds. And I need to check the reference. I may be wrong on the year, but some 30 to 40% of individuals that were involved in different phases of the government were utilizing complementary medicine of one type or another. Well, if that's the case, then having a situation where you can bring clarity and bring truth to the process is very, very important. At the same time, we have these really, really strange dichotomies going on. So, for example, the whole blow up that happened about the Goop special, when we had a whole series of news organizations that reported one Reiki study that was negative. They went hunting for it. You know, you've got several hundred of them that support Reiki, that were better designed, that were better done, and one that was negative that they pulled out of the thing, and therefore there's no data. It's a lie. It's an absolute flat out lie.
Subjective, what did you say, Caitlin? Bias?
Selection bias.
Selection bias, exactly. Yeah, you see the
And
thing.
we have, we have a group of skeptics, for example, who post on a regular basis about articles that support their paradigms, saying there's nothing to this energy medicine stuff. And I'm absolutely fascinating. There's a wonderful article that Dr. Ann Baldwin wrote, where she did work in a shielded chamber with a SQUID, a super quantum interference detector, and Reiki practitioners, and basically said the data shows a support for what the practitioners are saying. And the skeptics took it and said, the data shows that it doesn't work. Hello, we have the lead scientist, who is originally a physicist, a full professor at University of Arizona for many, many years, in charge of interdisciplinary studies for a period of time, worked at the medical school, worked in the Department of Physiology. She is a brilliant researcher. And they're saying, our truth is better than her truth. And hello, she's the one who did the study.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by that, things like that.
Yeah, you know, it's Robert Becker all over again, the body electric, which, you know, he was the first person to really stand up and kind of talk about electricity moving from one side to another. And, you know, he got shunned for it, and he got, you know, didn't get his funding re-elected and his position repointed. He was the golden boy until he started talking about that. Osteopathic surgeon grew back parts of the body, parts of the arm, studying salamanders. It's a good book, The Body Electric. But it does show how the medical world shuns things it doesn't understand. Even when, you know, Albert Svend-Jorgi talked about the connective tissue, the collagen fibers being conductive. Of course, they took them out of the body, they dried it out, passed electricity. It's not conductive. See, we've taken down the great Svend-Jorgi, Nobel Prize, vitamin C, first person to contract a muscle in a petri dish, all that fun stuff. The point is that people seem keen to take down stuff that's different and new to them. How
scary. New can be scary. And
yes,
people choose fear.
they choose fear. Caitlin, what were you going to say?
There's a long history of that, and it's not just specific to medicine. If you look historically, anything new is scary and potentially dangerous.
How do you feel what's happening now with this whole new shutdown and people having to deal with what they might consider new emotions that are coming up that have previously been held in place? How is this going to affect things now for the world of energy and distance healing?
I don't know that it is. Most of the energy practitioners that I know have been doing distance healing already, so it hasn't affected their practice much.
Right. I don't mean in terms of that. I mean in terms of the world coming to terms maybe with different ways of living and different understanding of what's important and what's real.
That depends on how people react when we come out of this, and that's going to be hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
It can go two different directions. You can have an expansion or a contraction. So people can expand and get more open to new experiences and new viewpoints, or they can rigidly try to go back to status quo. And it depends on exactly how that plays out.
You know, I was talking yesterday with Nathan about the circle of Oriental elements. I can't say that. The circle of elements within the TCM model and the notions of emotions. And I was trying to extrapolate where society might be in that realm and how we can move things on. Is there anything from your understanding of how things flow with regards to TCM as to what might happen next?
Not really. So people generally have a place where they individually sit. So you'll have people who are prone to liver issues or people who are prone to kidney issues. And depending on where they generally sit, that's more likely to be aggravated in any stressful situation. And this definitely defines stressful. So it's going to depend on where the individual usually has things going on.
So it's organ related. Have you thought about it as a society model, the elements with the organs and the? Yes.
Western society has a tendency towards not supporting certain things, such as the expression of emotion. And a lot of Western diet, for example, is very, very very hard on the spleen. And if you think about it, the trend towards fast, not necessarily fast food, but things done quickly,
right,
will also have an impact on that. So a lot of things that show up in clinical practice are liver and spleen related. But
so what can people do now, Melinda? What can people do stuck at home? You know, the power of energy medicine is almost like the power of prayer, right? How are they connected?
This is an opportunity to perceive, to take a beat pause. Can you hear silence? Silence has a sound. Can you hear the waves that are coming through the womb? Riding the energies is like surfing. You need to understand when the wave is rolling out and when the wave is rolling in, when the pulse is coming up and getting stronger and the wave is beginning to rise up through your body or move through a section of your body. Can you feel that? Can you perceive that? When you can surf the wave, then you don't have to pick fear because you're perceiving accurately what the flow is of information that's coming to you. your chakra system, I'm going to talk energy medicine for a minute.
Mm.
So your chakra system is part of perceiving the external environment, bringing in information so that you can catalog and understand it, so that you can flow with it, so you can allow the conscious awareness of the birds that are 250 yards away from me, that are sitting in the saguaro cactus and are actually having a fight right at this second. And the coyote that is over near the water trough that's about 500 yards away on my property, who is lapping at the edge of the water trough because the horses are out back instead of right there, and he feels safe enough to come. You can perceive those flows coming in through your body if you take that beat pause. So it's an opportunity. Now, single parent, 5 kids, 3 kids, 8 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid, kid isn't sleeping, everybody's frantic. Getting 2 minutes to do something can be a challenge.
Mm.
But if you can at least breathe and check your breath, if you put your hand on your tummy or your back and see if you can actually breathe into your back and make your hands move apart so that you're taking a breath that's deep and down, and then listen. Take a beat pause and just listen.
Now, I think that was beautiful. And of course, you know, we're moving towards, with your good work, the validation of different people's energy medicine skills. But of course, you know, people practice these things anyway, not professionally and going out and charging money, but with their family members, like massage. People are massaging each other. They're not massage therapists, they're massaging. And in the same way, people are going to be doing, you know, they're caught together in a space. So what do we know from the world of energy medicine that can help these people ground and connect and heal?
Ground.
Oh, okay, grounding. That was your answer.
Yeah, sorry, it's a technique and it helps everything.
Tell us.
Sorry, I am not necessarily good at translating that.
Okay, well, we had Jim Oshman on last week, and of course his main thing is about earthing and grounding and pulling up electrons from the earth in order to mop up the free radicals that are going through the body and blah, blah, blah. So there is a physiological process of grounding where you get your feet naked in the earth. Okay, so that's grounding. Is that the grounding you mean? Or you also do a psychological grounding as well?
Less the psychological. But I'm afraid I didn't actually watch that video yet.
No, that's okay. You know Jim's work with electrons and earthing and stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's physiological and energetic, which I'm assuming he talked about both. But it has an impact on how things impact you.
Right. Okay.
So let me translate for a second, if I might.
Yeah.
To a Qigong practitioner, drop Qi. To a yoga practitioner, you want to breathe into the peritoneum. You want to breathe into the heart. You want to breathe into the feet. To a laying on of hands practitioner, you want to drop the charge into the earth so that the base of your field is in the earth. To people who want to ground more fully, you can sink your entire etheric body into the mantle of the earth.
Okay, so let's talk about people who have they don't know anything about energy medicine. They've never heard of it until now. And all they know about energy medicine is, you know, prayer. I'll pray for you. And they think about somebody and they are having an effect. They are having a distant effect.
A lot of science behind that.
Right, and the science behind that, the power of prayer. And there's actually quite a good body of research behind prayer. Although the religions try to take it, but they don't understand its physics. Anyway, so what about people who are stuck in a house with their family and the kids are going wild, their partners are going wild? How can they
together
say, okay, so tell us.
Sing together.
Sing
Together. Because when you sing, your heartbeats align, your breath aligns, and your fields become coherent. We have hard science to back that up. Okay? So sing together. Even if it's row, row, row your boat, you know?
Gently.
Yeah. Yes. There was a wonderful video on the BBC website the other night of a family who was singing together, who did a Facebook video translating this situation into one of the songs from Les Mis.
Right.
And it was fabulous. And the family was singing together, and there was coherence with the family. So even a few minutes of break, 3 minutes or 5 minutes of break in that kind of situation, that's something that most people can do. And it doesn't matter if you sing well.
You can sing along with the radio. It doesn't have to be rewriting a song.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a composer. So singing increases coherence, and coherence is where one thing supports the next thing. The sentence is coherence when it makes sense. If in order this it was, it would not be coherent. So coherence is one thing leads to another, to support another, to support another, and singing is obviously one example of that. That's great, good advice. What about any other stuff? We've got a few minutes left.
One of the things you can do is put a hand on a shoulder and have everybody stand in a circle, put a hand on a shoulder. And think about the person next to you and go one side or the other and have everybody going in the same direction about what you think their very best characteristic is.
So think well about someone.
Yes. Something that is beautiful or valuable, a time that you laughed together, a time you were in joy together, something where you all relaxed and were having a good time, something about the person next to you that's valuable and wonderful.
And what does that actually do? Like
it actually sends electrical current around the entire circle.
Great.
Real, hard electrical current that we can measure. It's very, very cool.
Where do people get hold of these measuring devices? I mean, now it's a bit difficult. Obviously, everyone's on shutdown. How can they start to, see for themselves, witness for themselves what's happening?
It depends on the device.
And how much money you're willing to spend.
When can we get squid machines in accessible for people?
Do you have a spare couple of 100,000?
100 million, maybe.
Yeah, that process is expensive, but a data logging multimeter that just looks at voltage, $19 the last time I went to buy one at Home Depot. I bought one at Lowe's and it was the same price range. So
hold the red and the black and you just but which volt?
Check the voltage, both AC and DC.
What volts are you setting it to? 1.5, 5, 9?
No, you just send it to AC or DC and it tells you the voltage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
and you can have one of you hold the ground and one of you hold the live and see what happens differently. And that's a cool thing to do for parents with kids, and an awful lot of people have them in their garages because they've had to deal with electrical systems in their house or in their apartment.
Right. That's a great tool for families to try at home. Get a voltmeter and see who can pass the most electricity. I mean, there's no real danger, is there, with regards to overloading the system? Because we talked about before, energy practitioners overloading a pancreas.
Well,
try the voltmeter, but there's a limit to the damage that does.
So, yes, I got angry at one point and was borrowing Caitlin's car and went out to the car, put my hand on the car and shorted out the transmission. So yes, you can have kind of a lot of effect if you're used to moving electrical current in a larger way. There's a wonderful video online, for example, of someone in Puerto Rico who was meeting with the scientists at one of the universities there, and they're able to move 210 volts through their body comfortably. And they literally stuck their finger in an electrical socket and ran their other finger on a piece of paper and watched it burn up. And they were fine.
Please do not try this at home under uncontrolled conditions.
Do not do this at home. This was a special circumstance with scientists and protective equipment and everything else. Do not do that at home. But yes, so you can have electrical effects that are dangerous. At the same time, you can explore a little and gently. There are some wonderful websites. I don't mean to name one website more than another, but lessemf.com. Fabulous website, all sorts of cool toys to measure electromagnetic fields and radio frequency fields, microwave fields, look at what your body is doing, oscillatory effects, high frequency effects.
Okay,
cool.
And seeing as though we're talking about EMFs, just quickly, I know it's not a quick topic, but how is 5G going to be influencing the energy world of energy medicine?
So part of energy is breath, and part of body function is getting oxygen to all the cells. Based on the data as I understand it, and I am not an expert in this area, I've watched a number of things that Dr. Beverly Rubik has done, and she is very skilled in this area and has done a great deal of research. 5G, when it is close to the physical body, appears to make blood cells stickier, and stickier in such a way that they don't slide into capillaries as well. And no, there isn't any relationship between 5G and COVID-19. They are different things. Fiber tissue growing through your lungs is not the same thing as sticky blood cells. They are different, okay?
I could see sticky blood cells having an impact on your immune system. That's about as close as I'm willing to get.
Yeah, so they're very different, but not being able to have the body cells breathe is a critical piece.
Right.
You know? And when 5G was explored, it was explored from the point of view of the heat generated. It wasn't more completely explored, and it needs to be more completely explored so that we understand it, so that it isn't a controversial thing. It isn't something that we need, you know, if we need shielding of a particular type, we should do it.
Right.
If we need appropriate modulation devices, we should build them. Engineering should take that as an opportunity to create things of value that protect humanity and protect the earth, rather than seeing, oh my, it's terrible. We have to say, no, it isn't an issue. And lying. Fear is a choice. Don't make it.
Fear is a choice. Don't make it. That was a good ending. I like that. Thank you so much. Any last words, Caitlin?
Not really that I can think of. Although if someone wants to look up sliders and figure out how to fix that particular technological problem, that would be great.
Sorry, tell us the problem.
Sorry. The ability to run more energy through your body and fry electrical things actually has a technical term. It's sliders. There's a fair amount of research behind it. We discovered it recently. It was very cool. And if someone wants to, say, set it up so that I don't fry my phone, that would be lovely. Right,
because you're sliding, are you? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so the circuits are designed to take a certain amount of electrical charge. People produce a certain amount, and they're designed to accept that. And some people run a higher amount of charge on a regular basis.
Right.
Technical term, sliders. And because the chips are only designed to go so far, it fries them.
Interesting. Right. So anti-sliding devices or sliding explanation. First, you have to understand what's going on in sliding, I suppose. And then you can maybe devise some systems to counterbalance it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well,
it's an opportunity.
The Dr. Connors. Thank you so much, Dr. Melinda Connor, Dr. Caitlin Connor. It's been a great pleasure. When I post the video, which will be today, I will put the links to the NCCOEP and the NAOEP.org. Pushing forwards, advancing medicine and energy medicine alike. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been such a great pleasure having you both.
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon. I'm just going to close out the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the tech problems again. I don't know what's happening here, but it's been great. Another witchy, wizardy Wednesday. You know, the power of magic and the power of movement is with us. Be coherent with yourselves, be present with yourselves, and allow yourself to dance with nature, with your earthing body, with your family. Sing, be incoherent, be together, and watch out for that that observer bias, that we often see the things that we know to be the case in our head and ignore the new stuff, the stuff that contradicts it. We're doing that the whole time to support the fact that we think we know what we know. So be aware that there's a balance. Stop, take the stop energy, the stop gap, listen to the silence. Inside the silence, there is presence, there is sound, there is you. Wonderful. Tomorrow, we've got another wonderful lineup. Who do we have? I don't even know. Oh, we have Jennifer House and Sridhar, who founded Bhakti Fest. That will be an interesting one. As my dad tells me I have to say, I've got a book, bookevolve.com. Check it out. My name is Markabadi. It has been a wonderful pleasure. Thank you to everyone involved. And thank you to the sky for still shining. Thank you. Goodbye, Connors. Goodbye. Thank you so much. Lots of love.
Thank you.